Hi everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to explore the heartfelt and emotional journey of Jack and Tien, a couple who faced the unthinkable when Jack suddenly collapsed and was rushed to the ICU. Through fear, heartbreak, and uncertainty, Tien never left his side. This is a story of true love, resilience, and what it really means to stay when things get tough. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next episodes. It all started one quiet morning. Jack, the guy who always seemed invincible, the one who smiled even when things got tough, collapsed out of nowhere in the middle of the living room. No warning, no sign. Just pain. Intense, searing pain in his head, like something was tearing through his skull. Jack! Jack! What's happening? Tien screamed, panic crashing through her like a tidal wave. She rushed to his side, kneeling next to him on the floor, hands trembling, eyes wide with fear. He looked at her, eyes full of confusion and pain. But no words came out. His mouth moved, a whisper, a gasp, and then nothing. Tien fumbled for her phone and dialed the emergency number, her voice shaking. Please come quickly. He's in pain. He can't talk. Please. The sound of sirens tore through the quiet village. In what felt like minutes, the ambulance was there. Jack was barely conscious as they lifted him in. Tien never let go of his hand, whispering, "Stay with me, okay? Please stay with me." The ride to the hospital felt like a lifetime. Every bump in the road made her heart skip. Every glance at his pale face filled her with dread. As they reached the hospital, a group of doctors rushed him into the emergency room. A nurse gently held Tien back. "We've got him from here. Please wait outside." The doors closed, and in that moment, the world around her disappeared. She backed against a wall and slid to the floor, sobbing. It felt like the air had left the building. Minutes crawled by, then an hour. Finally, a doctor appeared. He held a stack of medical scans and wore a solemn expression. "There's significant inflammation in his brain. We don't know the cause yet. It might be viral, possibly autoimmune. We're admitting him to the ICU for close monitoring." That word, ICU, hit her like a punch to the chest. Tien nodded numbly, signing papers she could barely read. Her mind was spinning. Would he wake up? Would he still be the same Jack she knew? She made a shaky phone call to Jack's mom. "He's in the ICU. They don't know what's wrong." There was a pause, and then his mom's voice, firm and urgent. "I'm coming, right now." Jack was unconscious, motionless, his body connected to machines that beeped steadily. Cold, clinical reminders that he was still alive. Tien stood outside the glass, her hand pressed against it. Every beep gave her both hope and heartbreak. When Jack's mom arrived, she wasn't alone. Aunt Hong came too. They rushed in, eyes wide with fear. The moment Jack's mom saw Tien, she pulled her into a tight hug. "We'll get through this, sweetheart. Together." Even though they weren't blood, Jack's mom had always loved Tien like her own. And now, in this moment, that love grounded her. Night fell. The hallway grew quiet. Only the occasional footstep and the soft beeping from machines filled the air. Just after midnight, the neurologist returned. "The swelling is centered in the temporal lobe," he said. "We've started treatment. High-dose steroids and antivirals. The next 48 hours are crucial." Tien's breath caught. Will he wake up? There's hope. He's young, strong, but now we wait. When visiting hours reopened, both Jack's mom and Tien were allowed into the room. They slipped on hospital gowns, their hearts pounding. Jack looked slightly better. His skin had more color. His chest rose and fell steadily. Tien leaned in and whispered, "Hey, remember our dream? Traveling the world, hunting down hidden niche bakeries, croissants in Paris, laughing our heads off in Huyan? You can't skip out on that." She could have sworn she felt the slightest squeeze from his hand. Later, Jack's mom sat with her in the corridor. "He's fighting, sweetheart, but now he needs us to be strong. No fear, no regrets." The next morning, sunlight poured gently into the ICU room. Jack's vitals had improved. The swelling was going down. "The meds are working," the doctor said. "Keep talking to him. Love does more than you think." For the first time in days, Tien smiled. She stepped back inside and sat by Jack's bed. She began to talk about everything. The neighbor's dog that kept chewing on his sandals. The time he burned toast and tried to hide it behind the fruit bowl. The little things, their little life. She laughed softly, her voice breaking with tears. Maybe, just maybe, he heard her. Outside, dark clouds gathered. Rain was coming. But inside that room, there was warmth. There was hope. She leaned close and whispered, "Storms always pass. The sun always returns." And for the first time since Jack fell, she truly believed that. By the next day, things had started to turn. Slowly. His numbers looked better. The swelling had gone down more. The doctors still couldn't say when he'd open his eyes, but they were hopeful. Tien hadn't left the hospital once. She sat beside him, holding his hand, counting the steady rise and fall of his chest, listening to the machines like they were music. Jack's mom brought food, forced her to nap for at least a few minutes here and there. But Tien never stayed away long. And then, something changed. His fingers moved. At first, she thought it was her imagination. But then, there it was again. A tiny twitch. She leapt to her feet and called for the nurse. Within seconds, the room was filled with medical staff. One doctor looked up and smiled. "His brain is responding. This is a very good sign." Tien broke into sobs, her knees buckling as Jack's mom caught her in a hug. It felt like the universe had just handed them a miracle. That night, the hospital quieted again. Jack was still unconscious, but everything felt different, lighter. The air carried something it hadn't in days, a promise, the beginning of something turning around. The next morning, the silence in the room was broken by the soft rustle of movement. Jack's eyelids fluttered. Tien, half asleep with her head resting on his arm, jolted upright. His eyes blinked open, confused, groggy, trying to make sense of the ceiling above him. Then they slowly drifted toward her. Tien's breath caught in her throat. "Jack," she whispered, voice barely audible. He looked at her, really looked at her, and with a weak, broken voice, he murmured, "You stayed." She nodded, tears already running down her cheeks. "Of course I did, always." A quiet gasp came from the doorway. Jack's mom stepped in, her hand pressed to her heart, eyes glassy with tears, but filled with a steady smile. "You scared us," she whispered as she moved to his side. "But you're okay now. You're going to be okay." The days that followed weren't easy, but they were full of light. Jack was weak, exhausted. He couldn't walk yet and needed help with even the smallest tasks. But he was there. He was present, and that was everything. Doctors ran more tests, adjusted his medications, and explained that while the worst was over, he'd need long-term care and emotional support to fully recover. Jack's mom made sure the room never felt gloomy. She brought in homemade meals, teased him for complaining about hospital food, and told funny stories to keep his spirits up. Tien never left his side. She helped him sit up, fed him when his hands were too shaky, and held his arm steady as he took his first hesitant steps toward the bathroom. One evening, as Jack sat upright in bed, still pale but improving, he turned to her. "Why did you stay?" he asked quietly. "You didn't have to go through all this." Tien gave him a soft, tired smile. "You would have done the same for me. Love doesn't walk away when things get hard. That's when it shows up." That night, when Jack finally drifted into a peaceful sleep, Tien stepped out into the hallway for the first time in days. The cool air hit her face, and the weight of everything, fear, exhaustion, hope, crashed over her. She leaned against the wall and slowly slid to the floor, covering her face with her hands. For the first time since it all began, she cried. Not the kind of crying that comes from panic or sadness, but the deep, soul-emptying sobs that come after surviving something you never thought you could. Jack's mom found her there and sat beside her. "You've been strong for all of us," she said, wrapping an arm around Tien's shoulders. "It's okay to fall apart now." "I was so scared," Tien whispered. "I thought I'd lost him. And now, I don't know what happens next. Will he still be the same? Will we still get to dream the way we used to?" Jack's mom didn't answer right away. She looked out the hospital window at the dark sky. "The dreams might change," she said softly, "but that doesn't mean they disappear. You'll build new ones, maybe even better ones, stronger." Tien nodded, her face still damp with tears, but something in her chest had shifted. The fear hadn't vanished, but it no longer had control. Over the next few days, Jack's recovery accelerated. He could sit up longer, walk more steps, laugh again, especially at the cheesy hospital TV shows that played on loop. The nurses even started calling him the comeback guy. Jack would just grin and point at Tien and his mom. "They're the reason I'm still here." One morning, Jack took her hand as she settled beside him. "When I was out," he said, voice soft but clear, "I heard you." Tien's eyes widened. Everything felt dark, heavy, like I was trapped. "But your voice, it kept cutting through, like a light in all that black. I think that's what brought me back." She couldn't speak. She just held his hand tighter, her eyes welling up with tears. The first time Jack opened his eyes, the first thing he registered wasn't the hospital ceiling or the machines. It was the warmth of someone's hand holding his. He blinked. The world was a blur. Then as his vision sharpened, he turned his head, and there she was, Tien. She was right beside him, eyes wide, lips trembling. For a second, she didn't move, afraid it was a dream, afraid to breathe. Then she broke. She leaned in, cupping his face with both hands, sobbing. "Jack, oh my God, you're awake. You came back." His throat was dry. His voice, a hoarse whisper. "You're still here?" Tien let out a soft laugh through her tears. "Of course I'm still here. I told you. I'm not going anywhere." They leaned into each other, foreheads touching, tears falling freely. No dramatic words, no rehearsed lines, Just two people who almost lost everything, holding on to the only thing that mattered, each other. Jack's arms, though still weak, wrapped around her. Tien melted into his embrace, pressing her ear to his chest, listening to his heartbeat like it was the only sound in the world. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I thought I'd lost you. I didn't know how to breathe without you." "I'm sorry," Jack said, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean to leave. I never wanted to leave you." They stayed like that for a long while, the soft beeping of machines, the only reminder that they were still in a hospital room. Eventually, Tien pulled back and looked into his eyes. "Whatever happens next," she said, "whatever the doctors say, whatever challenges we face, I want to face them with you, always." Jack looked at her, really looked, at the eyes that had cried for him, the voice that called him back, the love that stayed through everything. He nodded. "I promise," he said, tears slipping down his cheeks. "Whatever comes, we face it together. No running, no hiding, just us." They leaned in again, forehead to forehead, and in that quiet moment, with all the mess and uncertainty around them, they made a choice.